are joined by, ladies and gentlemen, Piers Corbyn is an owner-operator of WeatherAction, and he has incredible accuracy that even mainstream media has admitted, sometimes 9 months to a year out on major weather cycles. He has an honors degree in physics at Imperial College London and studied astrophysics at Queen Mary College. Corbyn also has a long history of just incredibly accurate predictions dealing with the weather, and he is a heretic as well. He says the sun and the moon as a lensing effect is one of the main drivers of our climate. Of course, any idiot knows that, but he scientifically quantifies it. And so he joins us to break down the latest hype, where it's not global warming now, it's just climate change, period, is not natural. Just another giant hoax. Of course, the only thing that is constant is change. And he's, as I said, a meteorologist and an astrophysicist. He's here to break this down with us. We're going to break here in a few minutes, Piers, but I appreciate you joining us. What's on your radar first and foremost today?
Well, the warmists in the shape of the UK Met Office have got what they called a climate summit today, where they were going to discuss why are all these changes happening and is it to do with CO2. Now, a number of people told them we should be invited, WeatherAction should be invited, because we had the answers to many of these questions. Now, of course, they didn't invite us, and we put out a statement saying, well, of course, this meeting is just a scam to raise the profile of climate change nonsense during the G8 summit, which has also been held in the United Kingdom at the same time. And, we've had interesting reception and had a debate on one BBC radio channel on this matter earlier today, which was quite amusing.
Well, all the polls show that the global warming anthropogenic crowd, man-made crowd, has been discredited with the public, but they're still in charge. They're just moving forward with all their carbon taxes. Yes. Congress won't pass a law, so Obama just does it. Of course, the Chinese are exempt, so all our jobs go there. How do you expect this to end up as the public wakes up, but the authoritarians move forward?
See, they give lies and lies, and their only answers are, on this radio show, he just said, oh, you are an astrologer and you are a conspiratorial nutter. You know, he just went on like that, and I said, look, tell me the science, because I had already stated, look, we use these low solar activity changes, the moon, to predict weather a long time ahead, and you guys can do nothing. So he didn't answer any of that. He just was...
And obviously the moon affects the tides, but it also blocks the solar winds.
That's right. The most important effect is how it affects the solar winds. It does have a tide.
And you graduated with honors.
Secondary, if you like.
Yeah, well, we've got to go to break. We're going to come back and give you the floor to break down this, but... I mean, it's on record the moon is manipulating weather and that the sun is. I mean, come on. And you are a astrophysicist, not an astrologer, and they know that, but they think their audience is dumb. And that's why the BBC does that.
The important thing about the Pro 1 filter today is that the material we use for removing fluoride and other heavy metals now will remove the latest form of fluoride called hydrofluorosilicic acid. There's no other fluoride reduction filter out there that will remove that type of fluoride. And it's extremely important because today we're hearing more and more cities are using that form of fluoride.
We've been having medication forced on us through the water system for quite a while. Most people don't realize it. Most people don't realize the negative effects of fluoride.
There's a wide range of health effects that are attributed to fluoride.
Bottom line, why should somebody get this new Pro 1 Pro Pure filter?
The reason to buy the Pro 1, it's an all-in-one filter. It's convenient, easy to use. It doesn't require the add-on fluoride filter. And in addition, this filter removes the latest form of fluoride called hydrofluorosilicic acid.
Piers Corbyn, meteorologist, astrophysicist, is our guest. And he was just on national BBC radio, and they were calling him an astrologer. And I've seen that in criticism of him when, like, major newspapers have admitted that he's accurately predicted weather sometimes a year out. off of solar activity. And then there's all these other scientists I have on, and it's admitted that the sun, by mainline scientists, is the main driver of climate. But then all the global warming people run this hoax and go, everyone agrees, the sun doesn't affect our climate. By the way, you can pull that up. The UN votes and says the sun does not affect climate because they don't want it to be something outside. They want to make you guilty for it. And now England's had some really unusual weather. I thought it's always supposed to be rainy there. When I was there, it was quite sunny. And they spin any event, a wildfire, anything as a reason to pay Al Gore money, for Obama to raise carbon taxes, which he's paid himself. Piers Corbyn, you've got the floor. This is a short segment, long segment coming up. Get in for people what the main drivers are in a simple way, why the moon, why the sun are important.
Okay. First of all, I want to say it was great to meet you over in England because, you know, people need to shake up there, and you were certainly doing that.
Well, it was great to meet you, sir. Thanks for coming out to our Bilderberg protest.
That's right. It was fun. Right. So, what are the drivers of climate? It is solar activity modulated by the moon. And there's other modulations in the atmosphere to do with stratospheric winds and so forth. But these are also driven by the sun. So, when we understand the details of cycles, quasi-cycles, and certain predictability equations, we know when to look in the past for when there's likely weather for the future. And that makes it possible to give long range, many months ahead, sometimes a year ahead, quite detailed forecasts, including for the USA. And we've had some very significant successes. For example, June the 10th to 12th, you had a lot of storms all over the place, which was exactly in the time window we said. And if people go on our website, they can see pictures of that. So, of course, the next thing is, well, okay, we're doing all this, so why aren't they interested? And, of course, the reason why they're not interested is because they have a scam, which is to con the world that it's all caused by mankind, and therefore you've got to pay more taxes and be charged more for energy and food and everything. So the question must be really, how's this going to collapse? Will it collapse? And I think there's three things to notice. One is they have no scientific answers, so they just do name-calling. And they called me an astrologer and a conspirator and just nonsense. And I just said to him, look, give me the science, and he didn't give any. So when people see it's a con, they will react. But the main thing is that when the costs go up and up, people will just say no. And right now, we're paying 25% extra on energy costs, electricity and gas, to pay for those stupid wind farms that they're having, which are just killing birds. I mean, you know, it's a monstrosity, and people will come up and eventually say no. And I've been saying on the radio when I can that the party in Britain which says no to this global warming nonsense will win the next general election. And you know, there is a mounting understanding. And I think it's worth spelling out to listeners three very specific scams, which they're changing the facts, you see. Now, one is about carbon dioxide. They say, oh, yes, we've got carbon dioxide is the highest ever, and it's reached 0.04%, which they grandly call 400. On a systematic way, the same way as the recent measurements, as opposed to looking at ice cores, which lose CO2 by diffusion. If you do proper scientific measurements, and they had been done in the past, but the documents were largely suppressed, it's clear that twice in the last 200 years, the 0.04% figure was exceeded. So the idea that this is new is nonsense, and that completely takes away their idea that there even is more CO2. There's actually it's the same amount of CO2. Second thing is, on temperatures, they play a scam with ice cores where, in fact, they don't admit that, first of all, the sea warms up and then CO2 levels go up. So, on average, over long periods...
That's right. Al Gore moved the graph and put...
...by temperature.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I mean, Al Gore moved the graph and put carbon dioxide first and then heat goes up. But the truth was the graph that I've seen was that heat goes up and then CO2 goes up, correct?
Exactly right. And the third thing is ice in the Arctic. They keep on going on about ice in the Arctic because it went very low in the autumn. But they don't tell you that actually April 2012, it was the highest in 12 years.
Now you can watch Alex Jones live at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
You can also browse the network, the Infowars Nightly News,
and over 60 movies and documentaries all together in one place.
You can watch the Alex Jones radio show live as it happened.
So check it out, Infowars.com/show.
Finally, ladies and gentlemen, a new film on social engineering, mind control, the past, the present, and the future. State of Mind. I'm in it. So is G. Edward Griffin, Colonel Schaefer, and a bunch of psychiatrists and psychologists from Free Minds Film, the same folks that brought you A Noble Lie, Oklahoma City. This is an amazing documentary, and that's why we're offering it. We're the sole group, the exclusive people selling it. And when you purchase it from us, it funds the rest of the operation as well. But it's a very well-done film and great to pass on to friends and family. While supplies last, you can get the American Dream film exposing the banking cartel absolutely free when you get it on Blu-ray or DVD. You can get this animated, incredibly funny. It's great for people that aren't awake. The American Dream film, absolutely free. When we never do that with a new film because a new film sells itself. So please shop with the good guys, InfoWarsStore.com. And also, please support our local AM and FM affiliates. Be sure and support their local sponsors or become a local sponsor. And if you're listening on local AM or FM, I cannot tell you enough how easy it is to tell people at the water cooler or when you're leaving a restaurant at lunch, hey, guys, tune into the local station. Alex Jones is coming on. Or to stop at a red light. I'll be driving into work sometimes an hour before the show starts, and I'll be at a red light, and I'll roll down my window and go, hey, you look like a nice family. You care about your kids? Yeah, I sure do. You think stuff's wrong in the world? They're like, yeah, Alex, we're already listeners. That happens a lot. But sometimes they're like, yeah, I do. And I go, I'm going to be on 590, or I'm going to be on 90.1. I'm going to be on this local station in like 30, 40 minutes. Tune in. I'm covering some really important info. Or I'll be in the grocery store. Sometimes I bring the guys lunch, before the show or after the show, and I'll tell people in the line, hey, tune in today. And that's just how you get it done. So please tell folks to tune into your local AM and FM stations. It's so important. Now, going back to our guest, who is really, he's been on before, and I've pulled up all the mainstream news articles about the stunning predictions. I'm pumping our guest up because I want you to know this guy's proving he knows what he talks about. But it turns out it's what the old farmers knew. Even before they could study the sun, people hundreds of years ago knew that sunspots, when they first had telescopes, were associated with thunderstorms. And now they know. I mean, now when I hear about a record flare hitting the hemisphere I'm in, with all those particulate coming in, I know there's going to be big thunderstorms tonight. It can be a clear sky, and there'll be thunderstorms. And they now admit that. So this is mainline science, but they play on the public's ignorance about the sun and what it does, and then how the moon, whether it's blocking the sun, not the light, but the particles, or whether it's not, plus it also affects the tides. So I know you're getting into their frauds, but our audience knows that. Well, the reason I like getting you on, Mr. Corbyn, as an astrophysicist and a meteorologist, award-winning, graduating with honors, and then just in the last, 3-4 decades, trailblazing so much of the old knowledge with the new knowledge that just is constantly, because I read the scientific publications, even mainline scientific publications admit all this, but it's when you tune into the socialist news, they act like it doesn't exist. And then if you go back to every culture, the Druids, the Babylonians, the Mesoamericans, they would be a priest class who figured out when solar and lunar eclipses were going to happen. They would always say, give me the best hut, the best temple, your daughters, the best food, or the snake god will eat the sun tomorrow. And then they don't give him the best daughters and the best food, so the snake god eats it. They all beg, all right, sacrifice one of your kids, and the snake god will spit the sun out. That's the Aztecs. But it was the same everywhere, basically. The goblin god is eating the sun or the moon. Do what I say or it won't come back. They're the ones saying there's bad weather. Pay the Rothschilds and Rockefellers money on the carbon exchange, or you're all dead. Or a Mongolian storm blew into Europe, Eastern Europe. Look, red dust in the sky. We're all dead. Pay Al Gore money. When I've read history and have read about Mongolian storms blowing into Europe and Russia for thousands of years. I mean, sometimes I'll come out and my car's covered with dirt. And I'll go read it, and it's a northern Mexican desert storm, or it's a Mongolian storm, or it's amazing how they do this for just a lay researcher. It's such an incredible fraud. So get into the sun, the moon, what's really going on with the climate, and give us the weather forecast, some of the things you're looking at around the world, what to look at. People can also find out more at WeatherAction.com. Piers Corbyn.
Yes. Well, I think the main message you've got to understand for the next few years is they're going to carry on lying and they're going to get more exposed. And we think we're sure they've actually inflated real world temperatures by about 0.5 degree. So their so-called warming doesn't exist. And what we're seeing in the Arctic is big fluctuations in amount of ice, not reductions. And this is what happened during the last mini ice age. And this is where we are at the start of now, another mini ice age, which means the jet stream fluctuates more wildly. There are colder winters in the USA and Europe and Britain, wetter summers, especially in England and France, and there will be, generally speaking, a crisis in world agriculture because there'll be more wet.
All right, but let me stop you.
In the USA.
Piers, let me stop you briefly, because you went to break, and I just remembered you were trying to make the point about ice caps. We've shown the satellite footage of a year time-lapse of the North and Southern Poles obviously have their... explain that they aim a camera in time-lapse and show it shrinking in the spring and summer, but they don't show it growing again in the winter. This is natural.
Yeah, that's right. It's completely natural. Everything that's happening now is completely natural. And in fact, the only thing that's out of the ordinary, if you like, is the wider fluctuations. And these are completely explicable in terms of the jet stream being wildly oscillating, which happens when you have a longer jet stream, which is further south, and it's able to oscillate more, which is a characteristic of a mini ice age, and nothing to do with CO2 or their complete con. Now, they're scared of having us at any meeting saying this. So they had their climate summit claiming they were going to talk about everything. But the last people they wanted along were the likes of us to actually explain what is happening.
Okay, so continue. Break down what's really going on. Talk about the sun, talk about the moon, how those work together.
Right. The general decline of solar activity leads when the moon is in the right place, I suppose, and then repeatedly in the right place, encourages the jet stream to move further south and also wave around a lot more. And that is what gives us what we call this mini ice age weather. And, we make specific predictions based on the details, and the general thing to note is that we are at the start of a mini ice age. And you see, it's really important to understand this. It is going to put up the cost of food and energy, and because there's going to be more problems in agriculture, whereas what we need, therefore, is cheap food. Now, all the policies of the warmists are to increase energy costs and increase food costs, which is completely madness. They are pointing the world in the wrong direction. That's why they have to be opposed, absolutely. I mean, it's not just a little academic argument. It's a life and death question for millions of people who will be starving if their policies continue.
And by the way, Lord Monckton's broken down the numbers, and the UN even had to admit it. They were going to have it right at double the carbon cuts for Africa, Latin America, and Asia that the West was going to have to make, even though they sold it as an anti-Western socialist idea. If they put in the carbon taxes they've talked about, which they're trying to phase in, even though governments aren't passing it, Monckton estimated in a decade it will kill 1 billion people Folks don't know that 30+ million people starve to death a year worldwide.
There's people on the edge, you see. If you put there were food riots in Mexico when they started burning food as biofuels because the maize was being burnt, you see, and all sorts of stuff was being burnt, so prices went up. Now this is still happening. And going to carry on. So Moncton, I don't know the figures, but I mean, quite possibly there's a lot of people in the world on the margins, and they are being effectively killed by these mad people who are just want excuses to grab money off everybody.
Well, the IMF got leaked in 2002, has actuaries set up to where they actually control the police contracts and military contracts. They plan to make money off of all these third world countries rioting from Brazil to Turkey because people can't pay for food. Mm-hmm. And then they actually use that to get the country even in more debt as well. So it's all premeditated.
Yes. Yes, quite right. I mean, what is needed is policies which can enable economies to grow, not these. Well, they're just robbery policies, which doesn't help.
But as long as you call it liberal,
you've got to work.
It's trendy
To make an economy grow. You can't be prevented from working. It's insane.
Well, that's the post-industrial model. They publicly said that's their plan. Meanwhile, the insider corporations are all exempt, so then they take over. It's basic business for them using government. But specifically, as an astrophysicist, I mean, so much of this, by mainline research, they know, obviously, the heat of the sun, solar radiation, but how is the sun manipulating our weather in other ways, and what does the moon do?
Oh, okay. Well, the particles from the sun connect in different ways to the magnetic field of the Earth and enter the atmosphere, and they're charged particles. So they will, by the way they're moving in the solar wind, which is affected by the level of where the moon is, up and down compared with the plane in which the Earth moves around the sun, for example, and where it is precisely. That affects the solar wind and therefore affects circulation, and also the way, therefore, in which the jet stream moves or doesn't move. So that's one factor, and the other factor is the activity of weather fronts certainly seems to increase or decrease according to some of our parameters, which are based on increases of solar activity. So we have these red spike periods, like the 10th to 12th of June I mentioned was an R5 period, and we said in advance that means that anything standard meteorology says from a couple of days ahead is going to need to be magnified, and there'll be worse storms, and that was in fact the case. So not only did the storms come when we said from a long time ahead, they were also, once standard meteorology had seen them coming, they were also more intense than standard meteorology had said they would be. And if people go on our news section, you'll see a PDF describing just what happened.
Now, I, as a layman, but going off mainline research, have just drawn an image of the sun with the moon and the Earth, and I'm showing how solar radiation comes in when the moon is aligned with the sun and the Earth, and how it causes a deflection pattern. Then, obviously, then there's also gravitational waves that are affecting the oceans and cycles in birds and everything else. So the moon also has that effect. What is it called, the effect of the moon when it's, say, on the other side of the planet from the sun, not blocking rays, versus when it is in front of it?
Well, we don't have a name for that. Well, obviously, you've got new moons and full moons in terms of the light, but what we have to think about is not just this blob Earth. You've got to think of a great big volume around that, which spreads out to 3 times the radius of the Earth, which is a big magnetic field, and that is where the Earth's magnetic field is contained, and around that the solar wind blows, and some of the solar wind enters into the Earth's magnetic field. And then the Earth's magnetic field is stretched out in a long tail called the magnetotail. And the moon crashes through this magnetotail every revolution, and where it crashes through is of importance.
So as it comes through, it makes waves.
Intercepting the solar wind is also important.
So as the moon comes through, it causes all sorts of its own Coriolis storms?
Oh, sure, lots of things happen. I mean, I've got some friends in Russia, and I said to my friend Kirill, Kirill, look, just ask your mates, does when the moon enters the magnetotail, does anything happen? And he came back and said, no, they all said it doesn't. No, nothing happens. And I said, well, just have more of a look. And he came back 2 months later and said, yes. they now admit something does go on. So, you see, there's stuff going on which people haven't looked at before. And those things are, and we don't understand how it all works, we just got some ideas, those things are definitely changing weather patterns.
Sure, well, it's almost like if you have your water faucet on, but the sun's blasting out all sorts of stuff.
Yes. You've got to think there's a lot of stuff we can't see. There's magnetic fields changing all the time. There's particles swirling around in them in different ways. There's
sure, but if you stick your hand under the water faucet...
bad ways depending on magnetic fields and so forth.
Sure, but if you even stick a finger under the faucet, it deflects it and makes it change. Yeah. And then there's so many other things going on here. But, obviously the ancients knew that depending on what the moon did and the sun, that would have different effects.
Well, the Vikings knew that if there were aurora, then storms would follow. And that was always the case. I mean, sometimes it was too cloudy to see the aurora, but if ever they saw aurora, they knew for sure there was going to be storms coming within, days.
And that's because particles are coming through forming nuclei, correct?
Essentially, yes. Well, particles will do many things, but some of them will form, yes, they'll nucleate cloud formation.
I had tried everything. I'd cut back the amount of food I was eating. I was lifting weights and jogging, but nothing was working. My body was literally starving for minerals and trace elements as well as key vitamins. And as soon as I had that, I immediately could eat half of what I was eating previously and be satisfied. Now, there are hundreds of great products at InfoWarsTeam.com, but I want to point out the 3 that have helped me lose 37 pounds in just 2 months. Products like Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst, and Rebound. When I started taking the Tangy Tangerine and other products every day, I lost more than 37 pounds in just 2 months. Now that's results. I want to challenge my listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com and to order just 3 of their products, and you will see the changes in the way you look, feel, and in your appetite almost immediately. Start your journey to health and wellness today. InfoWarsTeam.com. Okay, Piers, so generally for Europe, Airstrip 1, Oceania, the UK area, and North America, what is your weather forecast short-term, mid-term, long-term? In general, what are we seeing, and what is the sun doing right now?
Right, well, the sun is generally very low activity, and then sometimes there are quite severe bursts dotted around in that low period, and that certainly causes sudden changes and big swings in the jet stream, which gives us this very contrasty weather, which we have been having, and that's, later in the summer in Britain there's going to be more very heavy rain and floods, and some parts of the US summer is going to have some more rain, and then a later part in the east probably some big heat waves. But, none of these things are good for agriculture. And the general trend in the years is lower temperatures for the whole of the temperate zone, and wetter summers and colder winters, which means food prices go up. So the warnings about food prices you've been carrying are, very apt. And we just have to really attack the politicians for leading the world in the wrong direction, because they're putting their selfish personal interests, to rip people off ahead of what is actually needed.
Amazing. Any other key tidbits that people should be aware of?
Yes, well, the scams will carry on, and the key thing is to say to these people, where's the evidence for what you claim? And hold politicians to account. Demand evidence-based science, and that we take measures to prepare for mini ice age effects. And there's 2 things to do there. One is make use of detailed long-range forecasts and two is to bring down food prices and end all these crazy thieving tax plans to make people pay for something which is in fact a delusional nonsense.
All right. Piers Corbyn from WeatherAction, thank you so much for spending time with us. Look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you.
All right, there goes Piers Corbyn.
Now you can watch the Infowars Nightly News streaming live as it happens for free.
Check it out at Infowars.com/show.